The moment she said, "Can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a while?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my heart was already warning me. We were standing under the flickering streetlight outside a quiet cafe, the city humming softly around us, and there was something desperate in her eyes that made the air feel heavier. I tilted my head, half joking, half testing the edge of a line I knew I shouldn't cross, and said, "Do we have to kiss too?" I expected her to roll her eyes or walk away. Instead, she swallowed hard, looked down at her trembling hands, and whispered, "Only if it makes it believable." That was the exact moment I should have said no. Because pretending is easy, until your heart forgets it's acting. She was my coworker, my accidental coffee partner, the woman who always pretended she didn't care but somehow remembered everyone's favorite drink. Her name was Era, and behind her calm smile was a storm she never talked about. That night, she told me everything in broken pieces, her family pressuring her to settle down, an upcoming engagement announcement she was trying to escape, and an ex who refused to believe she had moved on. She didn't need love, she said. She needed time. Just a few weeks. A lie with an expiration date. I told myself it was harmless, that I was just helping a friend. But when she slipped her hand into mine for the first time in front of her family the next evening, my pulse betrayed me. Her fingers were warm, her grip unsure, and when she leaned into me, my body reacted before my brain could remind me this wasn't real. The pretending started small. Smiles held a second longer than necessary. Conversations that drifted into midnight. Texts that began with, "Are you free?" and ended with, "Good night." The first time we kissed, it was supposed to be proof. Her mother was watching, expectations sharp in her eyes, and Era looked at me like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. I kissed her gently, careful, controlled. But the second kiss wasn't for them. It was quiet, accidental, happening in the elevator when the doors closed too slowly and neither of us stepped back. When she pulled away, breath shaking, she whispered, "This is getting complicated." I wanted to tell her it already was, but instead I smiled and said, "We're doing great." Lies stack easily when they're wrapped in warmth. Weeks passed, and the lie grew roots. I learned the way she laughed when she forgot to guard herself, the way she went silent when old wounds surfaced, the way she reached for my sleeve when she was overwhelmed. She started relying on me not just in public, but in private moments too, after arguments with her parents, after nightmares she wouldn't explain, after seeing her ex across the street one evening and freezing like time had stopped. I held her then, no audience, no pretending, and she cried into my chest like it was the safest place she knew. That night, as she slept beside me on opposite ends of the couch, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't acting anymore. And worse. I didn't know if she was either. I thought the hardest part would be falling in love with someone who asked me to pretend. I was wrong. The hardest part was realizing she was pretending not to fall for me too. The night everything began to unravel, she asked me to come with her to a family gathering that would end everything. Her voice sounded steady, but her eyes kept avoiding mine. On the drive there, silence filled the car, heavy and loud. When we arrived, her ex was there, confident, smug, certain he still had a place in her life. I felt like a prop suddenly aware of his role. During dinner, Era's father asked about our future, marriage, plans, commitment. The question hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. I looked at her, waiting for the signal, the script. She froze. Seconds passed. Then she laughed nervously and said, "We're just taking things slow." Something cracked inside me. Because that wasn't the lie we agreed on. That was uncertainty. And uncertainty hurts more than rejection. Later that night, outside under the same streetlight where it all began, I finally asked the question I had been avoiding. "When does this end?" She didn't answer immediately. Her silence said more than words ever could. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "I don't know anymore." That was the truth she'd been running from. She admitted she had started to feel safe with me, seen with me, and terrified because safety meant real, and real meant risking heartbreak again. I told her I couldn't keep pretending, not when my feelings were no longer part of the act. I told her I'd fallen for her somewhere between the fake smiles and the real tears. And then I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I let her go. Days passed. Then weeks. No messages. No accidental meetings. Just absence. I told myself that loving someone sometimes means stepping away so they can choose you freely, or not at all. One evening, as I was locking up the cafe where this story began, I heard her voice behind me. She wasn't smiling this time. She wasn't pretending. She stood there, eyes red, heart exposed, and said, "Can we stop pretending now?" I didn't answer right away. I just opened my arms. She stepped into them, and this time, when we kissed, there was no audience, no script, no fear. Just two people choosing each other honestly. Some stories don't begin with love. They begin with a lie. But the strongest love stories are the ones where two broken people stop pretending long enough to be real. And sometimes, the person you agree to fake a future with becomes the one you want a forever with, no acting required.